Clara stepped out of the building when the sky had already lost its color and the city was breathing with fatigue. The clock on her phone showed the same time as always, as if the days were repeating themselves without asking permission. She walked to the familiar corner where the street split into two opposite directions. To the right, the safe path, bright, familiar, etched into memory. To the left, a narrower street, quieter, slightly darker. Clara paused for a second longer than usual. She didn't know why her body hesitated. There was no visible danger, no logical reason for rejection, just an ancient feeling whispering, no. She turned right, as she had every day for years. As she walked, she felt a faint sense of relief, as if she had avoided something unnecessary. The sound of her footsteps blended with the distant noise of cars and other people's conversations. Everything seemed normal, excessively normal. The building lights, the traffic signals, the lit windows. Nothing broke. Nothing changed. Nothing began. And yet, something invisible closed behind her. Something that would never open the same way again. That night, Clara ate dinner alone, as she had so many times before. She turned on the television without really watching the screen. Her mind returned, uninvited, to the corner she had left behind. She didn't remember ever considering turning left before. It was as if that possibility had been born that very day, or as if it had always been there, waiting to be noticed. She wondered what was on that street. Closed shops, perhaps. A useless shortcut. Nothing that justified the unease in her chest. As she fell asleep, Clara dreamed of a strange scene. She was standing at the same corner, but the city was empty. There were no cars, no lights, only silence. On the street to the left, a man stood motionless. He didn't call to her. He didn't gesture. He only looked at her as if he had known her forever, and that was what woke her. Clara opened her eyes with a start, her heart racing. She looked at the clock on her nightstand. Exactly 1 minute had passed since the dream ended. She took a deep breath and told herself it meant nothing. Dreams don't change destinies. Corners don't keep secrets. Small decisions don't matter. That's what she believed as she closed her eyes again, without knowing that the thought was a comfortable lie, without knowing that fate had already taken note. The next day, Clara woke up with the feeling that she had forgotten something important. It wasn't an image or a word, but a faint weight behind her eyes. As she got dressed, she thought about the corner without knowing why. She had never been one to think about alternate routes or minimal decisions. Her life had always moved forward on quiet inertia, work, home, rest, repetition. No jolts, no deep questions, no unnecessary detours. And yet, that morning, something didn't fit. On the way to work, Clara avoided looking at maps or side streets. She felt that if she observed too closely, something might activate, as if the city hid invisible switches. People passed by without noticing her unease. Laughter, conversations, ringing phones. Normality remained intact. But in her chest, the silence was different, denser, more alert, as if it were waiting for a signal. At the office, Clara made small mistakes she never usually made. She replied to the wrong emails, mixed up schedules, called someone by a name that wasn't theirs. When she noticed, she stared at the blank screen. She didn't understand where that name had come from. It didn't belong to anyone she knew. It was just a feeling written down, an echo without a face, a memory without a past. As evening fell, Clara decided to walk home, even though exhaustion weighed on her. She needed to feel the city under her feet, not through a window. As she approached the corner, the air seemed to change temperature. Nothing visible, nothing logical, but her body tensed. The street to the right was still bright and safe. The one to the left, silent and expectant. This time, Clara didn't stop. She quickened her pace. That night, the dream returned without asking permission. The corner, the empty city, the man standing in exactly the same place. This time, he took a step forward. He didn't smile. He didn't threaten. He only said a sentence Clara would never forget. "You always choose what's right." And when she woke up, Clara understood what was unsettling. It didn't sound like praise. The days began to repeat themselves with an almost offensive precision. Clara woke up at the same time, drank the same coffee, and walked the same streets. Nothing failed, nothing broke, nothing asked more of her. Her life worked like a well-adjusted mechanism, without risks, without shocks, without real losses, and without real victories. Her friends described her as stable, reliable, correct. She never made impulsive decisions. She never got into trouble. She was always on time. She always delivered. She listened to those words like someone receiving a silent diagnosis. They weren't insults, but they weren't praises that ignited anything inside her either. They were safe labels, comfortable, final. One afternoon, Clara received an invitation to join a new project. It didn't promise immediate money or clear stability. It was an opportunity for growth, exposure, uncertainty. She read the email several times. She felt the same familiar knot in her stomach, that urge to close the door before something could come in. She thought about the corner. She thought about the man. She thought about the phrase, "You always choose what's right." And she declined the invitation without explanation. That night, the dream changed shape. The city was no longer empty. There were people walking down the street on the left, laughing, arguing, crying, living with messy intensity. The man watched her from afar, without coming closer. And Clara understood something painful. That street did not lead to danger. It led to life. When she woke up, Clara felt a sadness she didn't know how to name. Nothing bad had happened. She hadn't made any serious mistakes. And yet, something seemed to have been lost forever. She got up, looked at herself in the mirror, and saw someone intact. Too intact. Like an object that had never been used. Like a story that never demanded to be told. Not knowing that destiny does not always punish with pain. Sometimes it punishes with comfort. Clara began to notice small details out of place during the day. Shadows that seemed to linger a second longer than they should. Reflections in shop windows that didn't perfectly match her movements. Nothing she could explain, nothing she could point to with certainty. It was as if the city were slightly misaligned, a minimal error in reality. Something only she seemed to perceive. She kept walking, ignoring it. She had always been good at ignoring signs. She had always moved forward without asking. One morning, as she passed the corner, she heard her name. It wasn't a shout. It wasn't a clear voice. It was a murmur perfectly woven into the noise of the street. Clara stopped dead in her tracks. She looked around. No one was watching her. No one seemed to have spoken. The street to the left was empty. Too empty. From that day on, the man began to appear in impossible places. Sitting on a bench, reading a newspaper with no pages. Standing in front of a darkened shop window, watching her through the reflection. He never came closer. He never followed her. He was always there for just an instant. And he vanished whenever she blinked. Clara began to doubt her own perception. She thought of stress, exhaustion, imagination. She thought of everything except destiny. The dream returned that night with brutal clarity. The man was no longer at the corner. He was standing in front of her. She could see every line on his face, every scar, every mark of someone who had lived too many lives. He spoke without moving his lips. "I exist because you didn't turn." Clara felt an absolute cold run through her body. She didn't wake up right away. When she opened her eyes, dawn was pouring in through the window. Her heart was pounding violently. She got up and walked to the bathroom mirror. For a second, the reflection didn't imitate her. The reflection watched her. Then it smiled and went back to obeying. Clara pressed her hands against the sink, trembling. she understood something terrifying. The dream had crossed the border. Clara returned to the corner at dusk, for the first time without rushing. There were no crowds and no excessive noise, only the distant murmur of the city. She stopped exactly where her body always stopped without thinking. To the right, the lit street still invited her with familiar promises. To the left, the darkness seemed deeper than on other days. The air was still, expectant, like the moment before a confession. Clara felt that this wasn't the first time she had stood there like this, as if the scene had repeated itself many times, as if the world waited for her decision out of habit, and as if it already knew the outcome. The man appeared without a sound, a meter away. He didn't step out of the shadow. The shadow recognized him first. This time he didn't seem like a stranger, but like someone inevitable. Clara felt no fear, only an uncomfortable calm. He looked at her with a sadness that asked for no comfort. "Your life is correct," he said softly. "It works. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't break." Clara wanted to answer, but couldn't find the words, because she knew it was true, and because that truth had never been enough. He took a step toward the street on the left. He didn't invite her with gestures or commands. He simply pointed to the path she never took. "Every time you choose safety," he continued, "I am born somewhere else." Clara felt a silent blow to her chest. "I'm not a person," he explained. "I'm the sum of all your unlived versions. I exist because you survive. I remain because you don't risk." Clara finally understood what she had never wanted to see. She hadn't avoided tragedies by not turning. She had avoided transformations. She hadn't escaped danger. She had escaped herself. Every correct decision had erased a more honest version. Every safe minute had left a possible life behind. The man wasn't a threat. He was a living archive, a memory walking in her place. He slowly stepped back toward the left, dissolving into the dimness. "You always choose what's right," he repeated, without irony. Then he added something that left her frozen. "But what's right isn't always what makes you real." The corner was empty again. Clara turned to the right, as always. Her steps sounded steady, intact, predictable. But for the first time, each one felt heavy, because now she knew what she lost by choosing that way. And that awareness closed her first life forever. But this is not Clara's only story, because at another point in time, at the exact same place, on the same day, with the same exhaustion in her body, she did turn left. In that other reality, fear was not stronger than curiosity, and instinct did not scream loudly enough to stop her. There, the minute passed differently, and destiny was not archived, but activated. The dark street did not remain silent, and the stranger did not have to wait in dreams. That version of Clara did not choose safety, she chose presence. Now, the story shifts timelines. What follows is not a continuation, it is a consequence. It is the life that was born the moment she decided to turn. It is the story that exists only 1 minute later. Clara turned left without looking back. The step was small, but the air changed immediately. The street felt longer than she remembered. There were few lights, and none of them flickered. The silence was not empty. It was attentive. Clara felt the pulse in her hands. Each step sounded like a firm decision. There was no regret in her chest, only a new and dangerous clarity, as if the world had accepted her choice. Halfway down the street, the stranger appeared walking toward her. He did not emerge from shadows or dreams. He was there, as real as she was. He was the same age as Clara. His eyes reflected an ancient tiredness. He did not smile or introduce himself. He said her name naturally. Clara did not ask how he knew it. She felt she had always known him. The meeting was not a surprise. It was a memory. They walked together without touching. The stranger spoke of minimal choices. He told of lives that are born and extinguished. He said he remembers all of them. Clara listened without interrupting. Each sentence carried the weight of truth. The street seemed to learn alongside them. Windows lit up as they passed. Time moved forward without resistance. Nothing stopped to protect her. The stranger pointed to an open door. Inside, there was music and argument, people creating without guarantees, visible mistakes and sincere laughter. Clara felt fear and desire at the same time. He explained the price of entering, real pain and inevitable loss, but also meaning and a voice of her own. No life would be archived. Everything would be lived through to the end. Clara crossed the threshold without promises. The stranger did not follow her. He nodded, like someone who had fulfilled a duty. The street returned to its ordinary shape. Behind her, the corner grew distant. Clara took a deep breath for the first time. She knew nothing would be safe. She knew nothing would be empty. The minute had claimed its price, and she paid it with presence. The days that followed were unlike anything Clara had ever lived before. There were no stable routines and no clear promises of success. Each morning brought a new decision, small, demanding, unavoidable. The work behind that door was chaotic and alive. People argued, failed, and tried again. There were no masks of perfect correctness. The exhaustion was real, but so was the satisfaction. Clara discovered that fear does not disappear. It simply stops being in control. And that change alters everything. Losses came early. Some projects did not survive. Some people left without saying goodbye. Clara cried in silence more than once. Not out of regret, but from impact. Each fall left a mark. Each mark taught something. Nothing was comfortable. Nothing was reversible. But everything was authentic. In her dreams, the corner still appeared. But it was no longer a boundary. It was a distant memory. The stranger watched from afar. He no longer spoke. He no longer warned her. He only looked on with respect, like someone watching another cross a final threshold. Clara understood that he was not meant to follow her. His role was finished. With time, Clara began to change. Her voice gained weight. Her decisions stopped asking for permission. Life did not become easy. It became honest. The people around her noticed. Some drifted away. Others came closer with force. She accepted both movements. That was the price of being alive. One night, Clara passed by the old corner. She did not stop. She did not look to either side. There was no vertigo. The path no longer defined her. The choice had already been made. Life moved forward without splitting. Clara smiled without nostalgia. She knew who she was, and she knew why it hurt. Sometimes, Clara thought about the other version of herself without sadness or guilt. Not as a failed life, but as a different one. She imagined that Clara always walking to the right, safe, correct, protected from deep pain. A life that worked without demanding courage. A life that didn't break her, but also didn't wake her up. And in thinking that, Clara understood the difference. Those memories didn't come as clear images. They were brief sensations, almost physical. An excessive calm, a comfortable silence, an absence of vertigo. Like a perfectly organized room, beautiful, but with no open windows. Clara felt that echo in her chest, not as loss, but as contrast. One afternoon, looking at herself in the mirror, she noticed something different in her eyes. Not artificial brightness, not hardness, but depth. She had lived enough to hold her own gaze, to accept visible mistakes, to carry consequences without running away. The other Clara would never have had those marks. And for the first time, Clara was grateful for each one, because they were proof of choice. The stranger no longer appeared, not in dreams, not in reflections, not because he had vanished, but because he was no longer necessary. His existence depended on avoided decisions, and Clara had stopped avoiding herself. Life no longer needed to remind her of paths. She walked with intention, with fear, yes, but also with truth. One quiet night, Clara thought again about the corner. not as a breaking point, but as an origin, a place where she learned that destiny doesn't push, it only waits, that minutes don't punish, they reveal, that not turning left was surviving, but turning was living, and that difference no longer frightened her. Over time, Clara noticed that the world reacted to her presence differently. Not with favors or miracles, but with clear responses. When she spoke, someone truly listened. When she chose, something opened or closed without ambiguity. Coincidences stopped feeling accidental. Not because they were magical, but because she was paying attention. Destiny didn't shout. It responded to those who stayed, to those who didn't run. A difficult project pushed her to a new limit. There were no guarantees of success, no assured applause. Clara hesitated for the first time since she had turned. Fear returned with convincing arguments. She remembered the safe life as a possible refuge. The temptation to step back appeared without warning. But this time, it didn't paralyze her. It only asked for honesty. Clara moved forward, not out of bravery, but out of coherence. In the middle of the effort, she met people she would never have known before, not through romantic destiny or easy coincidence, but through an affinity born of shared risk. People who had also turned once, who understood the price of trying. The conversations were uncomfortable and real. There were no eternal promises, only sustained presence. That was enough. That was how things were built. One night, walking alone, she felt a different kind of calm. Not the comfortable calm from before, but an active peace, like a tired muscle that still works. She thought of the stranger without nostalgia. She understood his role as a threshold, not as a permanent guide. Destiny didn't need watchers, it needed participants, and she already was one. When she passed the corner, the air didn't change. There were no signs, no shadows. The street was just a street, and that was the final confirmation. When a choice integrates into who you are, it stops chasing you. Destiny was no longer watching from afar. It was responding in the present. Clara kept walking without looking back. Not because she had forgotten, but because she had arrived. Clara understood that not all decisions make noise when they happen. Some unfold in silence, like a light step at an ordinary corner. There was no epic music and no visible signs that night. Just a simple turn to the left. 1 minute held without running away. That was enough to change the tone of an entire life. Not the external destiny, but the internal one. The way fear is looked at. The way time is inhabited. The way presence is chosen. Over the years, Clara did not become invincible. She failed, she lost, she made mistakes more than once. But she never again felt absent from herself. Every mistake had a face, every achievement a clear cost. There were no archived lives waiting in the shadows. Everything she was being lived. The past did not chase her. The future promised her nothing. And still, that was enough. Sometimes, when telling her story, she left out the corner. Not because she denied it, but because she knew everyone has their own. A small point where the world splits. An instant where safety and truth do not coincide. Clara learned that no one can push you there, nor warn you completely. That minute is lived alone, and it is paid in full, with presence or with absence. On quiet nights, she thought about the other Clara, not with pity, with respect. That version survived. She complied. She broke nothing, but she also never crossed. Clara was grateful for that contrast, because without it, she would not have chosen with clarity. She would not have understood the value of risk. The world kept turning without stopping. Streets kept offering rights and lefts. People kept calling destiny what is really decision. But Clara knew something she didn't need to explain. It wasn't the stranger that changed her life, nor the dark street, nor fear. It was that minute held without retreating. that minimal gesture no one saw, the one that turned her, forever, into someone who chose to live.